Hello everybody. Welcome to my first YouTube video for OP10 Pre Release. Now, before we get started with what a pre release is, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that even though you are successful on the app, that does not mean you're guaranteed to play. So please make sure that you call ahead, check their social medias, make sure that there's nothing for you to do outside of just signing up, because most of the time you either have to pay ahead or shop gives loyal players first dibs, because there's been many times that unfortunately that has happened to me where I had been successful on the app, make a 30-40 minute drive and nothing. So please make sure. Now, what is a pre-release? Pre-release is an event where you test out the newest set of cards early, which takes place between the March 14th and the 20th. You're given a promo pack, and if you win, you're given a buggy winner card. You get to buy 6 packs from this pre-release before anybody else gets to get first dibs on getting the product for the following week. Now, let's talk about participation pricing. You get the buggy. Now, the buggy is made more for the players that want to play buggy. If you're not going to play buggy, I don't think it's a good card. And most of the time, especially for this sealed event, it says this character cannot attack. If your leader's buggy, all the characters of 3 or 4 cannot attack. Well, you're going to see later that unfortunately there's not that many cards in this set that cannot attack. It's not a good card overall for sealed. You're also given the promo law leader. You're given a new promo law leader that's red and purple, and they kind of changed the leader up pretty bad. I don't think it's usable anymore as it used to be. And you're given a pre-release pack, which these cards have a stamp. Last set, we got OP9 for the 2nd anniversary. Here's the 2 cards right here to compare: Stronger and Stronger with the stamp. Now you may be asking yourself, what's the difference? The big difference of these 2 cards is the price. The regular card is only 10 cents, possibly less than that right now, while the 2nd anniversary card is about $21. That's a big jump, big difference, and some of these stamp cards are worth a lot of money. Now, let's talk about the winner pricing. Winner, depending on the card shop, are either going to be doing pack per win or just a straight up buggy winner leader. And the buggy winner is exactly like the buggy promo that you get from just entering the event. Now, what do you need to win? You need to buy 6 packs of OP10, and the price is going to range anywhere between $30 to $45. That's for the tournament cost, which you're going to be given the 6 packs. However, if a tournament is charging you more than $45 to $50, if they're not doing extra pricing, that's way too much for them to charge. So make sure to look out for that. You need 10 Dawn to play. So make sure you have your Dawn, or maybe the bulk cards that you have, you can maybe turn them over and just use the back size as Dawn, just in case you forget. But do not forget your Dawn, as well as your sleeves. Why? Because you might pull something really good, like myself. Last set for OP9, I pulled the manga Shanks, and I actually played it in the tournament. And can you imagine playing a manga card with no sleeve? Yeah. Now, how to win? You need to pick a leader, and you need to make a 40 card deck. There is no color restrictions, and you're able to use 4 copies plus of a card. So if you see multiple cards that's the same typing and everything, there's no restriction. So if you see 5, 6, 7, 8 of that same card, you can run it. Which leader to pick? In my opinion, Sanji, the PRB leader, has to be S tier. Now here's the A tier. We have Bonnie. We all know what Bonnie does. The thing about Bonnie though is, in my opinion, you're using up one Dawn, so you can't really play to your full maximum Dawn with this leader. However, if you're going odd and you have nothing but even cost characters, you should be able to play around that. Same with Eustace Kid. Eustace Kid is pretty good. You manage to rest 3 Dawn and you just set him active. He's good for if you don't get a lot of good cards. And it does happen. I've had a friend that got, I think, about 4 or 5 leader packs from his 6 packs. And he did not get good cards from his loot. Let's talk about Katakuri. Katakuri, you attach 1 Dawn, swing for 7, look at you or your opponent's top life, and you decide if you want to leave it at the top or place it to the bottom. Zoro, you attach 1 Dawn, and all your characters gain 1,000. That's pretty good, especially if you see a lot of vanillas. B tier, Don Quixote do Flamingo. Why? Because this set has a good amount of Don Quixote pirates, which would combo out pretty well with this leader. Yamato. Yamato's pretty good because she's a cannon. If you happen not to see a lot of good cards and you want to just swing a little bit taller and want them to get that double life taken from them, okay. Nico Robin is a really good leader. If you don't have a lot of cards as well and just swinging with Banish and ramping your Dawn for maybe hopefully enough top end that you pulled, that would be a really good choice. However, these are 4 life leaders. The majority, everyone's going to be playing 5 life leaders, so you're already starting off with 1 life less. And I believe most shops will be doing this leader. And they will more than likely provide you with this leader, or you will have to probably use your phone to pull up that leader and use it. Why? Because in my opinion, this leader allows you to play all the cards that you got from your packs to the leader's strength, as compared to like in Sanji's case where you're just bringing whatever down and you're just swinging. Now what to look out for. Editing right now, and I just wanted to make a quick note that I got these ratios from a YouTube channel called The Vivi Theory. I've been watching his channel since I've been playing the game, so I want to give a big shout out to him. I will link his channel in the description below. Thank you. Whenever it comes to opening up your packs and getting your cards, personally for me, this is the ratio that's been working for me phenomenally. You want to look for 10 2Ks, 10 blockers, 10 vanillas. Removal and the card draw, we're looking for 5, as well as your boss characters 5. Do you want to go first or second? So, after building your deck, take note of the odd and even cost cards that you pulled. If you see more odd cost cards, you go first. If you see more even cost cards, you go second. This set has 16 2Ks. A lot of these 2Ks, you can see 8 of them are uncommon. So that means it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get 2Ks. So 6K hits in this set for pre-release would probably be the sweet spot. Let's talk about the 2Ks real quick. Note that the 2Ks are mostly just going to be 2Ks. You're probably not going to play these cards out. That's why you have your other vanillas and other cards for you to play. 2Ks cards for this pre-release are just meant for 2Ks. So this is a common. Here are the uncommon cards. You can pause and read these cards, but I'm going to skim through these because, again, these are cards that you're not going to be playing. You just want them for the counter specifically. Same for these cards. This chopper here, take note, it is a blocker. So when it comes to blockers, those are an auto grab, and same for Sabo. Pause and read for these cards, but usually they're going to be just for the 2K. Now for the super rares, There's a couple SPs in here. I put them in here mostly because you're probably going to be lucky, and I hope y'all's pulls are phenomenal. And if you happen to see any of these 2K SPs, I recommend you play them. Granted, some people might not play them, but I highly advise you play them. Same with Tashigi, good 2K. This set has 14 blockers. Now you see the little star, you'll see what I mean by that in a bit. These blockers are very, very situational. These are the only common blockers that require a certain type. Now, Bian, I don't recommend her at all because look what you need. You need to have another type of character other than this card to gain blocker. That's not going to happen for this set. So, don't even run her. But I wanted y'all to know about this card just in case you think you could play her as a blocker, but you can't. Scratchman Apu. Apu, if you have another Supernova type character other than Scratchman Apu, he's a blocker. So, there's some Supernovas in here that you're probably going to have on the board, and Apu could literally just be a 1-cost blocker with 1K counter. These are your typical blockers right here. Scotch, the on play is if you don't have a rock, you can play a rock from your hand. That's not going to happen. Clone Soldier, Dragon number 13, Bellamy's effect. These are just going to be mostly blockers. You don't want to really do their effects, in my opinion. Same for Treble, and same for Bartolomeo. They're just blockers. Jury Bonnie, same thing. On play, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life, add it to your hand. Add up to 1 Supernova type character with a cost of 5 from your hand to the top of your life cards face up. You're cycling. Could work, could help, but you're probably risking something that could have been a good trigger because there's some good triggers that you can possibly get from this event. She's a blocker on KO, down -1. If your leader has Don Quixote Pirates, add up to 1 purple event from your trash to your hand. Certain events that you might want to run, but I don't really like to run that many events in my opinion because you rather utilize your Don to play a character that requires mostly all your Don or just swinging to clear board. Marco's a blocker, but the on KO, in my opinion, is really good because you get to return one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less to the hand. So you bounce back and forth. It's almost like a Lucky Roo, but instead of KOing it, it just goes back to their hand, which is equally disruptive. You mess up with their tempo. Now, we just talked about 2020 Chopper, so same thing. He's a blocker, 4 cost, 2K. Frankie's pretty good because he's just a blocker, 1K counter. Play up to 1 Dressrosa type character card with a cost of 3 or less from your trash, rested. There's not really a lot of Dressrosa type characters that's 3 costs or less that you're going to want to play in sealed. Now, for Usopp deck, absolutely, but for sealed, probably not. And I wanted to include your Roge because, again, he's a rare SP, right? Yeah, SP. And you might pull him, play him. Now, we need to get vanillas. Now, what are vanillas? Vanillas are characters with no abilities and have 1K counter. These are an auto include to your deck. Now, you only have 1 common 3 cost vanilla. And here he is. It's a 3/5. Same for 4 costs. We only have 1 4 cost vanilla. We get to have 5 cost different vanillas. Here they are. You got Nami, Diamante, San Juan Wolf, Yoroge, and Sengoku. Now, what do we notice here? A lot of different number 5s. So that means there's a high chance you're going to be getting, and these are commons by the way, so there's a very high chance that you're going to pull these 5 cost vanillas. And if that's the case, that should tell you that you need to go first, because that's an odd numbered card that you're going to be pulling, and if you have multiple of these, your preferred would be to go first. Now we have some 6/8s. 6/8 is a crazy number to have. Imagine a character swinging for 8. If you can establish 2 of these on the board and they stick around enough, best believe you're gonna win the game. because 8k power on the board is a very, very hard stat to get rid of. And to try to play around that is going to be very tough if you don't see your blockers. Now here's an even harder one, 7-9. We get 1/7 cost vanilla. If you see multiple of these are an auto include. Now imagine you going first, 1 Dawn, then 3, then 5, then 7. Imagine playing 2 7s, turn, and then the next turn another 7. Really bad pressure. The removal and the bounce. We have 2 commons, 2 uncommons, 6 rares, 2 super rares, a couple of the bounce, 1 rare and super rare. So we have Edward Newgate. On play, if you have 2 or more rested characters, rest to up to one of your opponent's character with a cost of 5 or less. Then KO up to one of your opponent's rested character with a cost of 3 or less. So you're right now, a couple of these Auto Z cards are really good. The weak do not have the right to choose how to die. 5 cost, main or counter. KO up to one of your opponent's rested character with a cost of 7 or less. So those 7 costs that we just talked about earlier, this would deal with that. But it's 5 Dawn. So it's going to be a very hard situation to use all that Dawn. Gungam UFO. Main, give up to one of your opponents minus 4,000 power during this turn. Then, if you have 2 or less life cards, up to one of your leader or character gains 1,000 power for this turn. The trigger, KO one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. For 2 Dawn, you give something minus 4k. Now that helps out with the bigger bodies for you to try to take them down. God Thread, 5 cost. Main, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Then add up to one Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Where the trigger is you ramp a Dawn. We have 6 rares that are removal. We got Divine Departure. You may rest 5 of your Dawn, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 8k power or less. Chances are you're probably going to see maybe one of these cards. These are an auto include for sure to handle those top end cards that could be coming out. Radio Knife. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. Then KO to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 5 or less. This costs you 4 Dawn. I think that's not bad, especially if they just play something out the turn before. You could just get rid of it with just 4 Dawn. If you had already established board before, that's even better because you're just keeping that board, and board presence and sealed is everything. Damn Punk. This one personally for me is a card that I really need to get for sealed. 4 cost, main. Look up to one card at the top of you or your opponent's life cards, place it at the top or bottom, then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. The reason I really like this card is because the trigger is really good. You draw 2, trash 1. But the bigger thing in my opinion is seeing what you or your opponent have at the top of their life, and just put it at the bottom. And if you need guaranteed math lethal, it'll be much easier for you to know what that last card in life would be to try to go for game. Now here's 2 SP cards that in my opinion are really good. Sanji, on play, if you have a character cost with 6 or more, K up to one of your opponents with a cost of 5 or less. Edward Newgate. Probably has to be my favorite because I run it in Shanks. It's a 7 cost, 8,000 power. On play, give up to 1 rested Dawn card to your leader or to one of your characters. Activate main, you may rest this character, K up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less. So if they play anything with 5k power, that's going to be a lot of the blockers. You can just rest the Newgate and get rid of the blockers. We talked about the Marco, that on KO, he's a blocker. On KO, you bounce him back a 4 cost or less to the hand. Kiros has to be another really good card. He's essentially a vanilla card with no counter. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the on play is return 1 character cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. So if your opponent didn't have a 6 cost to play out, which again, there's only 1, chances are they're going to play a 5 cost under 6 Dawn turn if you go first. You can play heroes and bounce it right back. It's like they just didn't play anything out. Here's another really, really good card, in my opinion, for sealed. Just to have it for the trigger, and if you use it, you can use it. Activate main puts up to one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less to the bottom of their deck. And the triggers activate the main. That is nuts. I'm going to talk about card draw because card draw in this game is very, very important. In this sealed event especially. Gum Gum Rhino Schneider is a common, and the triggers draw 2, trash 1. Damn Punk, we talked about this before, the triggers draw 2, trash 1. Basil Hawkins, draw 2, trash 1. Cavendish is, in my opinion, a really good card if you're going second, because you can play him on curve, and then whenever you swing, you get the caveat of drawing 2, and you trash your 1 card. And now, if you have 2 or more rested characters, you draw 3 and you trash 2 cards from your hand. So if you see this burial pistol enough, because again, it's a common. If you put 2, 3, and if you happen to have that Enel, and you have those cluttered in your hands or certain events cluttered in your hand, play Enel and filter those out for other character cards that you need. Sanji is a 3 cost, 3,000 power. On KO, you draw a card. Don Quixote Rocinante, 5 cost, 6,000. On play, you trash 1 event, you draw 2 cards. And here is Eustace Captain Kidd. He's an 8 cost, 9,000 power character. On play, you rest his character and you trash 1 card from the top of your opponent's life card. So you play him, you rest him, and they trash a life. Raidon is really good. He's a pseudo blocker now, 9k power. At the end of your turn, if your opponent has 2 or less life cards, you draw 1 and you trash 1 card from your hand. So you're now being able to cycle more dead cards from your hand. Another character that you might want to play out the following turn. Now here's what I like to call flavored vanillas for this next section. What are flavored vanillas? There are characters that have a vanilla stat line but doesn't have counter and has the ability to make up for not having counter. We have 11 of these. So these are just straight up 3/5s, no, and a 4/6, no counter or anything like that. Personally, Sai is just a 3/5. You might need a 3/5 because again, if you're going first, you need something to play on curve. Same with Brook. But Brook, in my opinion, is really good. Why? Because on KO, you get to rest 1 of your opponent's leader or character cards with a cost of 5 or less. That's very disruptive, especially if your opponent doesn't sequence their plays. You can rest something of theirs and try to get rid of it that next turn that belongs to you and try to get rid of that tempo. You got Brownbeard. He's a 3/5. When attacking, if you have 1 or less character cards with 6,000 power or more, he swings for 6. So yeah, could be pretty good. Now you gotta take note, whenever you have flavored vanillas, in my opinion, you gotta play those cards out on curve. Why? Because you need to keep counter. Don't play a 3/5 or a 4/6 when you have another one and you play the one with counter. You need to play all the dead cards from your hand as quickly as possible just so you can have the counter to protect your bodies. Here's Fighting Fish. He's a 4 cost, 6,000 power character. Dawn X1 when attacking. You return a Dawn, kill 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. I don't think it's that good. It's just a 4/6. And again, you need all the vanillas you can have just so you can swing to leaders. Killer, same thing. He's a 3/5. On KO, your leader has supernova type. Look at the 3 cards from your deck. Reveal up to 1 supernova or kid pirate type character and add it to your hand. I don't like searchers, especially in sealed. Zoro's a 3/5. If you have less life cards than your opponent, he has rush. That's really good. So if you're going second and your opponent swung first at you, you're gonna take. Why? Because you need cards. You need cards to protect your board. If you counter out early, it's gonna be easier for your opponent to get rid of your board. And if you happen to see this Zoro on curve, guess what? You could swing for 5. Your opponent might counter. Great, you play Zoro and you swing for 6. The trigger, and is also really good. The trigger is you may trash 1 card from your hand. If your leader is Supernova, play this card. Now, The majority of these cards, in my opinion, that's what makes the Rainbow Luffy leader the best leader to play for sealed. Ryuma's a 4/6. Donix 1. This character gains double attack. Double attack in this sealed, where there's not that many 2Ks that you can possibly get, is very, very helpful. There's this Zoro as well. He's a rare. He's a 4 cost 6,000 power. On play, you can rest a Dressrosa type leader or stage card and you KO a 4 cost or less. Then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. This card is very iffy because if you want to get rid of board so you can establish more tempo, absolutely. Play the Zoro, rest your leader. Don't even assume with your leader because you got something off the board that was a 4 cost. So that's an added caveat for that. But the trashing 2 cards from the top of your deck might bite you, especially if you only saw one of something. These 2 cards, in my opinion, have to be my favorite cards for sealed, especially Smoker. The stat line is amazing. It's a 5 cost 7,000. It has Banish just built into the card. So you just swing 7, they have Banish. Activate main, set up to 1 of your Dawn cards as active. Then you cannot set another Dawn card as active using character effect during this turn. We don't got to worry about the other stuff. You just essentially Smoker effect, resend a Dawn. So every turn while this Smoker is on your field, you get an added Dawn. And 1 Dawn in sealed is essentially 1 card as counter that your opponent has to give up. Kiro's already talked about him. He's a 7/9 and you bounce back with 5 costs, so very disruptive. Trafalgar Law, 7 cost 9,000 power. On play, reveal up to 1 Supernova type character card from your hand and add it to the top of your life card, face down, and then get 1 rested Dawn card from one of your Supernova type leaders. So you play him, you show what you have as a Supernova, add it to the top of your life. So you essentially, for 7 Dawn, you just gain the life, and now you have a 9k attacker for the following turn, and you get to attach a Dawn to something. Let's talk about hitters and fillers. These are characters that are strong enough to hit leader without Dawn investment. They're decent and they have great abilities. These are cards that you need to complete the 40 card deck, because there's going to be certain cards that you're like, man, I don't know what to put in here. I'm like 3 cards, 4 cards short. These cards would be really good to just put them in there just in case. Smiley. Smiley's really good because it's a 5 cost 6,000. On play, if the leader has Punk Hazard, which you're playing Rainbow Luffy, it'll work. Give up to 1 of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 power during this turn. So it's very disruptive. You're going to get rid of whatever it is you're going to swing into by that minus 3,000. Because again, not a lot of 2K counters that you can get from this set. These cards, Odyssey cards, we were talking about a little bit Odyssey earlier. Frankie and Perona, these are just 5k bodies that can swing at leader. Zoro, in my opinion, Zoro is a really good card. Why? He's a 5 cost 6,000 power. On your opponent's turn, if you have 2 or more rested characters, so you just need to have another character besides Zoro that you swung with, and look what happens. This character gains 2,000 power. You swung for 6, and at your opponent's side, he's now 8,000. He's going to be very hard to try to get rid of, and he's a common, so you're going to see him a pretty good amount of times. Isho. Isho is probably going to be your game-winning card. Save him towards the end of the game or when you're trying to go for a game. Why? Because look what he does. For 5 costs, 6,000 power. On play, if your leader has the Navy type, rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. At the end, your opponent's going to try to block her up. It's not going to matter when you play Isho, because the most cost characters that we have for this set is literally 5 cost. So even if they played out 2 of their highest blockers from the last turn, you play Isho and you're resting them. It's almost like a hoodie. We have Mihawk, Enel, and Newgate. We already talked about Enel with the draw 3, trash 2, and we talked about Newgate that can KO a 3 cost or less. Now Mihawk, what it does is if you have 2 or more rested characters, set up to 1 of your rested Odyssey type characters with a cost of 5 or less as active. So a lot of these characters you can just restand and you don't got to worry about your opponent swinging into them. These are just 4 cost 5k bodies that you can swing into leader. You just need to be able to play something, especially if you're going second, that can just swing at leader. Same for Rocinante. He's a 5 cost 6,000. Now, at the end of the turn, if you have 7 or more Dawn cards on your field, set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. Now, in my opinion, again, I don't like running a lot of events in sealed, but if you see enough of Rocinante, you can definitely use more events in your deck because of this card. These are just 4 costs, 5,000 with Perona and Usopp. The Burgess, in my opinion, is pretty good, especially if you have 8 cards in your trash. Sometimes your opponent doesn't expect a rush. So he's a 5 cost 6,000. But if you have 8 or more trash cards, this card gains rush with a Dawn attached to it. So essentially he's a 5/6, but think of him really as a 6 cost 7,000 attacker, which is pretty good for the rush. And then I really like this card, Shiryu. Now, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. He's a 4/5, 1k counter. On opponent's turn, this character gains 2,000 power. Activate main once per turn if your leader has a Blackbeard Pirates type, which Rainbow Luffy it is. This character was played on this turn, KO to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 3 or less. Which, if you're going second, a phenomenal card. If you have this card going second, you just undid what your opponent just did the turn prior. And then you have Luffy, which is 6 cost 7,000. It's just a 7k attacker that can be swinging face every turn, which is always good for this set because, again, not a lot of 2ks. Now for yellow, I like Inazuma because of the trigger. If you and your opponent have 5 or less life, you get to play this card for free. So it's a free body. You attach a Dawn and you attack with it, you can rest up to something that's equal to you and your opponent's life, which would be pretty good if you need to be trying to clear the board. Which, again, in sealed, that's the number one thing you want to do, is make sure that there's a lot of good board control there. Because the moment you start to go behind with your board being cleared, not good. It's going to be hard for you to catch back up. Same with the 4/5 Caribou. Dawn 1 attached to it. If your leader has Supernova types, Rainbow Luffy. If your opponent has 3 or more life cards, this character cannot be KO'd in battle. So I think it's pretty good. Just the only thing is, if you're trying to be aggressive, it's not going to be good because your opponent's going to be taking life. And if you're going second, it's a good card to play turn 2. But other than that, if you see him late game, he's going to be a 1k counter. Same for Ivankov. Just a 5 cost 6,000 just to be able to swing at leader for 6,000. Basil Hawkins, in my opinion, is also another favorite card of mine that I would want to play for sealed. Hopefully I see enough of him. He's a 4 cost 5,000 power character, 1k counter. On KO, trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's live card. On KO, trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's live card. Now imagine that. Let's say you pull 2 or 3 of this guy. I would want to go second just so I can play Basil Hawkins on curve. Why? Because now I'm swinging, you're giving me counter, and if the countering is not hard enough, you get them off my field. Okay, now you lost a life. And the worst part of it, it's trash. So you don't even get that life card as counter. You just go straight to your trash. And the trigger is draw 2, trash 1. MVPs and game winners for the card. These are cards that are going to be helping you in the long term for you to win, and characters that can help you go for game. We talked about it. Zoro and Isho. Ryuma I like because you're going to be swinging 7k with double attack with this card. Damn Punk, I think it's going to be a really good card. Liberation, I think it's also really good. For 6 Dawn, so this would be more if you're going possibly second. The number of your characters is at least 2 or less than your opponent's. KO to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 6 and a 4. 6 Dawn, you're getting rid of 2 characters of a 6 and a 4. And the trigger, negate the effect of one of your opponent's leader character cards during this turn. Trigger, I don't think it would be good for much of anything. Maybe your opponent has certain Dawn attachment characters, but other than that, I don't think the effect would matter much. Shiryu, I think he's going to be really good because at your opponent's side, he's going to be 7k. 4 cost 5,000 RN. Going second would be great. And your opponent's side would be 7k. Basil Hawkins, again, very, very sticky card. 4 cost 5,000 power. Draw 2, trash 1. And if your opponent swings into it and KOs it, they lose a life. And then you have Cavendish, which is a 4 cost 6,000 power. When you attack, you draw 2, trash 1. So really good to filtering out your cards that you have, like events or anything like that. Smoker, 5/7, 5 cost 7,000. Such a good number to swing at face. And it has banish. So those are going to be guaranteed either 2 cards or a life that is going to be lost. So either way, you're winning from that swing. And you get to activate its ability every turn. And you're able to utilize an extra Dawn. Kyros being a 7/9. Again, third time we see Kyros up here. So if you see Kyros, play Kyros. You return a 5 cost or less to your opponent's hand. Very disruptive. Captain Kidd, 8 cost 9,000 power. You rest him, your opponent loses a life. And if they have 2 or less life at the end of your turn, you get to draw a card and trash 1. Really good for filtering. Everything that's all said and done, you may be asking, who am I? Who am I to be giving out this sort of advice? Well, I've won multiple pre-releases. My credentials are that I've won just about maybe 10 to 14 pre-releases. The only thing is, I tend to give out a lot of my pre-release winners to friends or trade it for other cards that I want. But I won a lot of pre-releases. So I feel that I have a good amount of knowledge when it comes to trying to give good tips of how to win for pre-release. Now the big thing here is I only wanted to make this so for people that are new to the game, new to pre-release, don't know what to do. There's been many instances where we're opening up packs for pre-release and people don't know what to look out for, what to put in their decks, and I just love to help people out. I love deck building. I love to pick people's brains just to see what they want to build, how they want to build it. Now keep in mind that the cards that you don't play in one round, you can swap out whatever it is you pulled into your next round. So that's very, very useful. There's been many times that I played against opponents and I would tell them after my match if I can see their cards. And whenever I see their cards, there'll be 2Ks, there'll be vanillas, there'll be events that could have been very disruptive. The card draw. This is my pre-release guide. And you got to make sure that after everything's said and done, we have fun. Win or lose, I hope y'all pull amazing. So if there's any questions, anything that y'all might have, any suggestions, please let me know. This is all new to me, so I want to be able to help anybody that needs help. I've won a lot of tournaments. That's not just pre-release. I've won other tournaments. I've topped at regionals before. I've bubbled out many times of top 64. I'm Jose, by the way, but I go by Kong, and I'm from Three Brothers Gaming. And I have both my brother-in-laws in the team, being Edgar and Bryant. So they're going to be along for the ride. They're going to be in videos, play testing and stuff like that. So, and before I forget, this is the website I use for pack simulating. So you're going to see here on this website, I'm going to link it down below, that you can open up packs and you have an idea of what you might get. So let me go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to copy the clipboard, go to your One Piece simulator, import the deck. Look at that. We got 5 leader packs. I hope that's not the luck we get. And you're making a 40 card deck, and because you need the rainbow leader, it'll be a 41 card deck here. So we can cut that out. Just first sight, not good. I don't like counter events. For sure, we don't want that one. We don't want searchers. We don't want searchers. We don't need that. We don't need that. No. We don't need that. Yeah. And then your Luffy leader. And that's pretty much the deck. But 5 leader packs was not a good start. I'll tell you that right now. If you get 5 leader packs, that's pretty much GG's. But it happens, unfortunately. That's RNG. But yeah, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll catch y'all next time, okay?